Sigurd are a traditional farmhouse brewer from Sykkylven, northwestern part of Norway, and he's the man behind kveiktraning, and is also the owner of number 8 Tormodgarden Kveiken, but also an excellent storyteller, as you soon will understand, and have some really interesting ways to think about the world of beer and brewing. Welcome to Huldrevatn and welcome to a northern route. As I said before, this is usually a Norwegian speaking channel, so if you don't know Norwegian you shouldn't subscribe. But I will have some English content coming, some international content. They will be marked in both the thumbnail and the title for being English speaking videos. And yeah, yet again for you all Norwegians. Jeg beklager at du må se meg gjøre det her en gang til, men denne gangen nå lover jeg at det er verdt det. So, the man behind kveiktraning.
Yes.
Can you tell me about it?
Kveiktraning was born actually on a Saturday morning on a Porter and Stout festival in 2018. The Friday night had been long and dark, and Saturday morning was filled with lectures, and Lars Marius was speaking about Kveik and the international interest of Kveik. And I suddenly realized he was talking to me. He was saying that the interest for Kveik is huge in all of the world, but nobody is offering a complete experience, inviting people in, giving them a tour, learning, showing them how the things I'm brewing, let them taste some beer. You would have something on Voss, but it wasn't the complete package. And I just realized, okay, this has to be me. I'm the owner of a Kveik. I'm at the farm with roots back to the 1500s, and I mean, I have been brewing since I was about 8-9 years old. So, if any, and I'm a storyteller. So, I mean, it was only natural that this would be my task. So that was the start of it, and 6 months later I was actually doing my first trainings.
Yeah, that's cool, because you mentioned storytelling, and I noticed that because of on your website you tell stories, and good stories from being a child and being a youth that perhaps doesn't like the beer that's brewed on the farm. Do I remember that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up with this, I was put to polish the copper kettles when I was 8 or 9 years old, because that was a child's work. So I was giving a bucket of ash and some kind of sponge and said, yeah, just polish this until it's bright and shining. And learning the brewing, I knew that I liked the smell of the house, but I mean, my first meeting with drinking beer was with a 2-year-old very oxidized raw beer that was way beyond the point where it shouldn't be drunk. And stealing this, taking it to a party and getting very drunk, very sick, very everything. It just disgusted me thinking about drinking that, because I wasn't introduced to this in a proper way. So meeting Pilsner, ordinary lager beers at the age of 16 was like a revelation for me, because that tasted good. But still, it was in the back of my mind that this was my tradition, this was my inheritance. And I kept brewing. My uncle and my grandfather showed me how to do this, and kept taking me in on the brewings, making sure that I knew how to do this, even if I was less than average interested and losing details in the process that I couldn't recall when I had to do this on my own after they were gone. When the interest arose again, it was natural for me to start looking back into this. I had become a very good home brewer on modern equipment in the meantime. So bringing knowledge from home brewing with the nice toys and gadgets we have in home brewing, using them to control the numbers and the things we were doing, the temperatures in the traditional brewing, was like an eye-opener for me, because the things I had learned, how to make a perfect mash without having a temperature gauge going to 80 degrees. You just made the perfect mash with making the right consistency of porridge. And doing that with those measures always gives me a mashing temperature between 75 to 80. No, sorry, 65 to 70. Yeah. And it always turns out right. And it's the same thing with the other things we do. We didn't have the toys to measure the gravity or anything, but we had some measures on tasting it and knowing when it was right to get the strong beers. Now we can calculate and know that how to make a strong beer and how strong it is. And the bridge between this is so fascinating. So it relightened my interest for the traditional brewing, since I now could look at this in the light of a modern brewer. So I think the concept is being able to relate to the transition from traditional to modern and back to traditional with the knowledge gained in this period, and then being able to make like a backbone for the stories I was told about my great-grandfather's brewing. It all makes sense.
I agree, and I think it's a really good perspective to have, to start with the traditions, going into home brewing and the more technical details, but still coming back and knowing that tradition is important. And as you said, the whole experience is important.
Yeah, but I mean, I had this tradition in the back of my mind, and I was quite sure that I was the only person under 70 years old that was actually interested in this kind of brewing, because there was no website, there was no forums, there was no way of reaching out to others, and everybody I knew that appreciated the beer I was making, they were my great-grand-aunt somewhere who had a good memory of this from 50 years ago, or my neighbor that was 80 that was still doing this brewing. And when I started hearing rumors that somebody was collecting these yeasts, and I got connected to the community that was being built around this, I was just fascinated that there is actually somebody out in this world with the same interest as me, that is not 80 years old and kind of a little dement today. So it became very important for me to become someone in this environment, and being someone that is able to relay the knowledge from my previous generations of brewers.
And I think you do that really well, because I see at the festival everybody's coming around you and flocking around you, and your equipment that you use is so authentic from looking outside and in.
Yeah, that's also something. I inherited the brewing equipment and as I always turn back to the history of the farm. There came a sheriff in and moved in at the farm in the 1590s. He showed up in the church books in the late 1590s. I have a door sign from 1598 from the old house. That house was torn down and rebuilt in 1880, which is the house I'm living in today. So within the physical walls of my house today, people have been living for more than 400 years and brewing for more than 400 years. The old sheriff is one of my ancestors, biological ancestors. So with this inheritance, I feel a responsibility to relay the knowledge and the concept of old brewing. And for me, it's very important that I showcase the authenticity by using the old style fashion. But also, I know my grandfather and my great-grandfather were men of progress. So whenever they would get some new kind of gadget that would make the job easier, they would embrace it and adapt it into the brewing process. So when my uncle made the brewing vessels of stainless steel instead of wood, I knew that this was accepted back in the generations, because this would have been embraced by my great-grandfather, which is the reference I'm using for the brewing. I'm using his brew of the 1950s as a reference point, where you still would be before the entrance of all the modern tools. So knowing that he would embrace all the gadget we could get into the brewing, but still doing the brewing old style, would be just up his alley. So I'm quite sure he's sitting on some cloud, looking down at me and being very happy about what's happening these days, seeing that his old brewing now has got this really big renaissance.
Agreed, and I think you have a good point there. Being, I think that's different from your family and what you're doing. That embracing new technology is okay, because I don't think that everybody has that point of view.
No, the new technology, but keeping the recipes and keeping the processes, but looking at what it adds to the value of your yeast and your beer.
Yeah, beer.
I mean, the eventual goal of my great-grandfather would be making the best beer possible in the easiest way possible, but without doing any shortcuts that would change the quality of the end product. And with this in mind, I feel very comfortable about using my new knowledge and my new tools just as like a check-in to see that we are on the right path. But the process is always based on the old stuff. So stainless steel is fine because it's easier to clean, and cleaning was my great-grandfather's biggest issue. And so relaying the idea of using our old Kveik, the old brewing techniques, and introducing that into modern home brewing and professional brewing. So the beers I brought today were purposely brewed to showcase how big a span you can make by making one batch of beer, splitting it into 3 different fermenting vessels, treating them a little differently, adding 3 different Kveiks, doing a little with the hops, adding different sugars, and then showing my audience that the same beer, 3 different end products, and you really can't know that they came from the same brewing because they are so widespread. And kveiktraning is all about showing a modern home professional brewer that instead of adding billions of worth of hops to make the next big thing in brewing, you can step down on the hops, add a Kveik, play with the temperature range of the Kveik, add different Kveiks to see what esters they are able to introduce to your beer, and bring a new product in that has never been tasted before. And for everybody, it's about brewing the next big beer that everybody loves, nobody tasted before, and that's getting a big thing within your friends or within the market. And I'm quite sure that the future will show that introducing Kveik at a much higher degree in the professional market will bring in options and opportunities that can give you the new tastes that has never been seen in the market before.
And that are tastes that the market wants. It just doesn't know that it wants it yet.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, I'm going to step on somebody's toes right now, but a couple of years ago, everybody was making brut IPA. Today, nobody's making brut IPA. And I think that was the most awful beer I ever tasted. And I had a tasting night with a good friend of mine, and I think we tasted 10 or 15 different brut IPAs. And I actually ended up begging for mercy and said, "Can you please bring me a regular Norwegian Pilsner, because I really can't take any more of this." So I'm thinking we'll still be making failures in the ways of product development, but I mean, we don't need to ruin the complete hop harvest of California in order to make the next big thing, when we can do it with much cheaper and simpler steps by just letting the Kveik do its magic to your next beer. I mean, whatever beer you introduce to the market, somebody's going to like it and somebody's going to dislike it. And it's always about making a beer that more people like than dislike. And I'm quite sure that the esters you can find, I mean, we have 80 different Kveiks available today, if not more. And they all represent different taste profiles. And I'm quite sure that you can make a million different kinds of beer just by playing with the Kveiks, before you actually need to go back to playing with the hops or other chemicals to your beer. So until we have tested that out, my job isn't done.
I agree. Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.